The village of Bhairavgarh, nestled between dense forests and forgotten hills in 19th century British India, held an unspoken rule: never wander near the ruins of the Chandra Mahal after sundown. The stone palace, once the seat of a powerful feudal lord, had long been reduced to moss-covered pillars and broken stairways. The British deemed it unimportant, calling it another relic swallowed by the jungle. But the villagers knew better. They remembered the blood rituals, the cries at midnight, and the royal family that vanished overnight. Only the old priest, Pandit Gaurashankar, spoke of it now, and even he whispered with trembling lips. In 1887, an ambitious colonial historian named Arthur Grayson arrived in Bhairavgarh, claiming to research forgotten dynasties. Fascinated by the mystery surrounding Chandra Mahal, he ignored every warning. With his assistant Ravi and a pack of supplies, he made his way into the ruins. The jungle had grown thick around the crumbled fortress, vines like twisted veins crawling over marble that still held hints of royal carving. As they entered the main courtyard, the air turned inexplicably cold. Grayson, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as altitude. But Ravi paused, sensing something watching them from the broken windows. Inside, beneath collapsed ceilings and rotted beams, Grayson found something extraordinary, a chamber hidden under loose stones. It was lined with ancient oil lamps and what looked like a throne, partially intact. But more disturbingly, carved into the walls were hundreds of names, scratched in different languages and scripts, most of them ending with blood-like smears. Among them, written in fresh red ink, was his own name, Arthur Grayson. He hadn't touched anything. Ravi hadn't either. Yet, there it was. The same night, back at the rest house, Arthur's sleep was plagued by feverish dreams. He saw a woman, in crimson silk, staring through a lattice, her eyes blackened and unblinking, whispering an ancient lullaby. When he awoke, his bedsheets were soaked in sweat and streaked with fingerprints in ash. The next morning, Arthur tried to return to the site, but Ravi refused. "It's cursed, Sahib," he insisted. "That woman you saw was Rani Vishpala. She died there. She never left." Arthur laughed him off, but the laughter masked his unease. He went alone, but the jungle felt changed. The paths he'd taken yesterday were now twisted, as if the forest was shifting to trap him. When he finally reached the courtyard again, the lamps in the underground chamber were lit, and he hadn't brought matches. By the time Arthur realized he was being followed, it was too late to run. Each time he turned a corner in the maze of ruins, he saw flickers of red silk disappearing behind columns. He tried to rationalize it as hallucination, the result of poor sleep and overstimulation. But when he stepped into the chamber again, he noticed something that hadn't been there before. A portrait on the wall, covered in soot but intact. It depicted the same woman from his dreams. Her hands were folded delicately, her gaze empty, and her eyes seemed to follow him wherever he stood. Beneath the frame was a plaque, Rani Vishpala, Queen Eternal. That evening, he returned to the village with scratches on his arms he couldn't explain. Villagers stared at him, muttering prayers under their breath. Pandit Gaurashankar summoned him privately. "She's chosen you," the priest said. "You opened the chamber without offering. She was once queen of this land, banished by her own people when they discovered she drank blood under the guise of rituals. She swore to return in every age, to reclaim her place through those who disturb her sleep." Arthur scoffed at the tale, but began feeling unwell. His reflection in the mirror blurred, his eyes bloodshot, his lips pale. At night, he found himself walking in his sleep toward the forest. Ravi caught him once, barefoot and chanting something in an old dialect. The next night, Ravi disappeared. They searched the outskirts and found his boots, placed neatly beside a tree. Nothing else. Desperate, Arthur tried to leave Bhairavgarh, but every horse he mounted refused to move toward the road out. He tried walking, but always ended back, at the same banyan tree with an ancient bell hanging from its limb. Each time he rang the bell in frustration, the same whisper echoed, "Welcome back, my king." Within a week, the historian was unrecognizable. His British mannerisms faded. He no longer wrote in English, but in Sanskrit. He adopted local dress and spoke with an accent that confused even the villagers. The transformation was not gradual. It was as if the man had become someone else. His skin grew paler, almost gray. He no longer ate during the day. The villagers began locking their doors at sunset, whispering, "The queen walks again, but now, in his skin." The deaths began quietly. First, a goat found drained of blood. Then, a child disappeared, only to be discovered 3 days later, in a dry well, skin cold and white. The villagers were terrified, but they dared not speak openly. Arthur, or whatever he had become, wandered the village at dusk, barefoot and humming a song in a voice that didn't match his own. Pandit Gaurashankar gathered the elders. "The queen has possessed him. He is her vessel now. If we do nothing, she will rise fully." They devised an old plan, a purification ceremony at the ruins, where the queen's soul could be trapped again. But they needed him there willingly, so they sent a boy with a false letter, supposedly from the British government, requesting Arthur's presence at the Chandra Mahal for a historical survey. Arthur agreed, smiling knowingly. That night, the ruins came alive with fire and chant. The priest circled Arthur, drawing sacred symbols in ash and turmeric. But as the final chant echoed, Arthur let out a laugh that chilled the bones of all who heard it. "You think she can be bound again?" he said, his voice a mix of male and female tones. "She is no longer waiting behind the walls. She is the walls." The palace shook. Vines burst through the floor. Flames turned black. One by one, the villagers screamed and fled. The last thing they saw was the queen's form, Rani Vishpala, emerging from Arthur's body, not as a ghost, but as flesh, reborn. By morning, the palace was gone. In its place stood a white temple with no doors. No birds flew near it. No one entered. Bhairavgarh faded from maps over the next century. Roads were erased. Travelers who came too close vanished. And somewhere deep in the forest, under eternal sunlight that never felt warm, the temple still stands, silent, watching, waiting, because history doesn't just repeat, it returns, hungrier,